I'm so happy we finally got to play Age of Empires 2. It was a game that I used to play as a kid growing up, and I never got to play on the computer since 2005, probably.
Well,
And now they released the game, and now we're playing on the computers
it all
nonstop.
started with me seeing an Instagram reel of somebody playing it,
Retro.
retro computer, and I was like, this looks really fun. Definitely something that I would want to play. And then we went down the rabbit hole of like, how do you get a PC game onto a Mac computer? You have to download this, and
Crossover on
that,
Steam and
purchase
whatever.
that, minus this, drag this file to that. But we got there.
We got there.
It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, I love playing old games,
I
especially
know.
those that we used to play on Windows.
hmm
It brings me back to the old times.
Yeah, I like those 2D games. They're definitely easier for my brain to understand. And again, they bring me
Yes.
back. So finding games that we can both play together, even though we play on separate computers, it's really cool. A great idea for couples out there that are looking for something fun to do together. I don't love video games as a whole. Would you say
Yes,
you do?
yes. No, I have a few games that I love.
Yeah.
That one is one of the games that I love specifically because I used to play growing up,
hmm
but I'm not a gamer.
Right. I'm not either, but again, finding things that we can do together at home that are either cheap or free,
Right.
where we get to laugh and feel like a kid again is
Yes.
super fun. But speaking of feeling like a kid again, when you were growing up, did you ever feel like a rebel or did you have like a rebellious side or do you feel like that was what you tried to avoid?
That's a great question because I don't remember feeling rebellious as a kid. I do
hmm
remember lying to my parents. I
hmm
remember my first lie to my mom that I can remember. I was 2 years old. I was going to her bathroom, wearing her
Oh
clothes,
my goodness.
locking myself for 30 minutes, wearing her bras, her makeup. At that age, I thought no one knew. I thought I was doing a secret. I thought
Yeah.
I was keeping that from everyone. However, later in life, my sisters, they told me that they always knew that I would wear their clothes in the bathroom.
So you were not a good spy or detective breaking in, entering. You didn't clean up your trail well. But I
I
mean, you
thought
were
I
good.
did. So yeah, I don't remember being rebellious, but I remember
Right.
my first lie, and I remember that I had to hide that constant
Yeah.
lie from my parents. I would lock myself in the bathroom, which is funny because at 2, I knew I was doing something wrong, right? I knew I
Already.
wasn't supposed to be wearing their clothes. I knew I was supposed to wear makeup. I knew I was not doing what I was supposed to do. So that's why I thought of rebellion when you
Yeah.
mentioned it.
It's funny because at age 2, so far you've told us you could put a VHS tape in to watch Snow White by yourself. You were putting on makeup, heels. You were doing most
I
things that,
know.
an average 10-year-old struggles with.
Yeah,
So, congrats.
I know.
I guess lying and trauma can sometimes help us, do things a little quicker in the age range.
Yeah.
But really, that's what this next topic is supposed to be about. I wanted to come out here and talk about how I felt growing up as a kid, very rebellious, even before I had even understood what that exactly meant. I think many times when you grow up gay or queer, you are put into this box of going against the grain,
Yes.
not following the rules,
Yes.
not doing what you're supposed to do, and considered a rebel. And that's very interesting for someone who maybe isn't how they see themselves, especially as a kid. You feel like you're following all the rules. You feel like you're doing everything in your ability to do what's right. But some of those feelings you have inside aren't right. And so maybe that internal you is a rebel. And so I don't know if other kids or other people who are adults now experience something similar, but I just wanted to kind of dive in and see what your history was like if you ever felt as though you were a rebel. So at 2, you
At
already
2, I
knew.
was rebellious. I was doing
Yes.
something wrong. I knew that, right? Because I knew I wasn't supposed to do that. But I think being queer, you always are trying to hide information from your parents, your
Right.
siblings. So I knew I was lying, which
Right.
is funny because I was so young. But then after that phase, I think growing up, I try to do the right thing because I was
hmm
terrified of being discovered.
Yeah.
Whenever I was more conscious about being gay and being more aware of what I was supposed to do, I
hmm
think I stopped lying and taking the risk of being discovered.
Right. I look back at like, age 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I think most of the lies or the dishonesty that I expressed was about, like you mentioned, like, oh, let's get this Barbie for Hannah, which is one of
Yes.
my cousins. And then I would like take it home or like play with it at my grandma's house instead, or try to, again, deflect a lot of those queer ideas that I saw not being accepted throughout. the way my mom would interact with people on the street or people she would met that were
Yeah.
queer, how she would, talk to them or talk about them, or and not negatively, so much as like aggressive, but never in a positive light. Things I would see on TV, the queer representation was always the joke, and so I really tried to suppress a lot of that. But when I got older, started to become a teenager, those hormones start raging. I started to realize that instead of deflecting this rebellious sort of label that I felt like society and my parents were putting on me, I was going to embrace it because those were the two options, right? I could live basically feeling as though I was missing out or
Yes.
hiding who I was, or I could decide to find people like me and
Mm-hmm.
try to blend in with them and learn from them. And when you're younger, that's kind of tricky
Yes.
because what was available to me at the time, MySpace, so you could meet people online,
Right.
but those people were like adults.
Yeah. How old were you?
I was like 15,
Yeah.
16. I luckily had a couple friends who were also queer. Well, one, and he lived in Orlando, so I would go visit him and be able to kind of be my rebellious self there. But like you mentioned, you don't have a choice whether you're going to be rebellious
Yes.
or follow the rules. You're lying to someone.
Yeah.
So if you decide to be rebellious, like I did, you end up lying to everyone
Yeah.
around you, or you can follow the rules and just continue to lie to yourself.
Exactly. Even if you're following the rules, even if you're not lying to anyone, you're
Hmm.
still lying to yourself
Right.
because you're not happy, right? You're not comfortable
Hmm.
because you know that you're gay. You know you
Yeah.
like boys. You don't like girls. So why you're
Yeah.
lying to yourself? But
Exactly.
we all go through this phase of fear, of suffering. I
Yeah.
feel like I suffer a lot from
Hmm.
hiding. I got used to lying, right? Since growing up, I had to lie to my parents. Oh, what are you doing in the bathroom? Oh, I was just taking a
Hmm.
shower.
Yeah.
I always lie to them, even the smallest things, because I didn't want them to know that I was doing certain things. So
Hmm.
I think all this suffering starts as very young for
Yeah.
us queer people. For some of us, we're able to express ourselves better as we grow older. Others, the lying part is still,
It's kind of difficult to shake. It almost
yes,
becomes a part of your personality. You
yes,
go so used to lying, lying,
yes,
lying that it's hard to separate.
yes.
And because lying is such a crutch that we lean
Mm-hmm.
on, it becomes very easy and effortless,
Yeah,
especially in your day-to-day life, right? When you are a
yes,
professional at lying to your parents, people you spend a lot of time around, your friends, people at school, you become a professional at lying, and that never really goes away. You're always able to kind of use that as a backup
yes.
plan. And unfortunately, as you get older, you get into a career, relationships that are actually
Mm-hmm.
meaningful, trying to develop yourself as an adult. Falling back on lying puts a big problem ahead of you.
Because this is an easy fix for the problem, right? You say something and you have your way out of it.
Yes, and it's temporary.
Yeah.
So when you're in those situations where you're never going to see that person again, or you don't really
Yeah.
care, why not just
Why
lie
not?
to
Yeah.
get around the situation quickly? But the problem is when you are lying a lot in your career with real
You get used
relationships,
to.
you get used to it, but it's also a web. You
Right.
weave this complicated system of lies, and you can't keep track of who or when.
Right.
And even the professionals, right? You grow up lying, so you
Yes.
know how to navigate that complicated map, but as you get older, your life gets more complicated. And
And you
so it's,
forgot what you told people,
yes,
and you get in this complicated, interesting situation. So things
yes.
get a little more complicated.
Yeah. And looking back, I didn't have brothers or sisters. So I was
Yes.
extremely lonely in regards to like having someone around that I could relay these
Yeah.
concerns with, or even just feel supported or not by myself. And that there's many pros in my opinion to being an only child. I had a lot of good things happen as well, but that was another compounding factor on how I chose to be more rebellious, because I wanted to be around people that I
Yes.
could feel a part of. Because being an only child, you just kind of feel like you're on your own, and then when your parents are not interested in developing you as a queer young person,
Yes.
what other options do you have?
So then at that age, 15, 16, you started going to Orlando.
Yeah, so I would skip school, and I was a professional liar, a professional
Ooh.
at skipping school. I always had A's and B's. I would actually come to school maybe once or twice a week, and my teachers would be like, "How are you passing?" Literally, there's one of my friends who's a good friend of mine still. Her name is Alicia. She always talks about how my history teacher would be like, "Is Tyler on a cruise this week?" Like in front of the whole class, because I would just never show
Wow,
up.
that's funny.
Yeah, but I didn't care. My focus primarily was on trying to explore who I was, and school took a back seat. But then again, I was fortunate enough to where I always was able to kind of
Well, you're
make it through.
smart.
Eh, I don't know. I don't
Well, I
know
think so.
if
I
I would
think I think
say
you pick
that.
up things very quickly,
Yeah,
and you're very smart.
thanks.
And you didn't need to spend that much time in school
Right.
for your age.
And that was a problem.
For me, I did the opposite. At that age, 15, 16, I wanted to do everything right. I wanted to
Yes.
follow the rules. I pretended I was straight. I was hanging out with the straight people. I was trying to do what men did.
Mm-hmm.
And I was lying to myself. I lied to myself for the next 3 years of my life
Mm-hmm.
until I had my first gay relationship. And that was when I started lying to my parents again.
Mm-hmm.
I hid my relationship for years. I didn't tell my mom, my dad. I had to lie to them about who I was hanging out with. They knew all my friends. So my boyfriend was somebody outside of my social group.
Mm-hmm.
I just had to tell them that I was spending the night somewhere else because if I told them, they would ask me questions. Who is this person? Who is this guy? And then it would arouse suspicion. And the last thing that I wanted was to be discovered at that
Yeah.
moment. I just
Right.
wanted to be under the radar.
Parents are really good at also asking questions when it's like the worst timing. So
Yes.
falling back on lying is again the easiest way to just remove the tension, at least temporarily. The problem is when you start lying a lot, it creates a lot of anxiety. So initially, those little white lies, the anxiety scale or the concern that you're going to get caught is quite low, but
Yes.
they start compounding. And then you have a big lie that you throw in. Then you start dealing with a lot of stress at a very early age.
Yes.
And those hormones that come out with stress are not meant to be permanent. They're not
Mm-hmm.
meant to last for days, weeks, months. And when you're
Wow.
gay and you're lying and you're creating this complex weave of webs that are tangling everyone around you, there's a constant threat of being caught.
Wow.
And that constant threat of being caught raises your adrenaline. That constant fear of having to identify what truth you told to what person and carrying that with you, compounding week by week, month by month, is a lot of stress and anxiety for a young person to experience.
On top of hormones, on top of acne, on top of being in a closet.
Yeah, being in the closet, everyone else already, you assume, thinks you're gay, so you're constantly trying to prove them wrong, prove yourself wrong. And so all of that trauma is very uniquely queer.
Yes,
Our straight
absolutely.
counterparts never have to, be concerned unless they're pathological liars about this complex weave system that we have to use to just get by.
They don't have to prove to the society that they're straight. They're just straight and they don't care.
Right.
It doesn't matter if they don't like sports. It doesn't matter if they are feminine. It
Right.
doesn't matter. They're straight, so there's nothing to prove. So for us gay, we have to prove to everyone that we're not gay.
Right. Straight people don't have to come out. They're already out. We have to go through this whole process of
Yes.
who do we tell? Do we deserve to tell them? Do they deserve for us to tell them? Is this important?
So they
Does it
already
matter?
know.
Do they already know? And what I love hearing from straight people, and by love, I mean, oh my God, it's just obvious that they have no idea what we're going through, is no one cares about your sexuality. This isn't something concerning. You don't have to
Right.
come out. You just put all these pressures on yourself. Okay,
Good for
yeah,
you.
it kind
Yeah.
of goes hand in hand with this idea that why are you choosing this lifestyle? Why not just follow the
Yes.
Lord? Why not just do what's best for you? Why not you be normal? Believe me, if there was an injection, if there was
Yes.
a pill I
Yes.
could take every day, if there was something to make my life
Yeah.
easier, especially as a kid,
Oh, wow.
I would have done anything.
I mean, I did try. I
Yeah.
did try to date girls. I did try to watch porn. It didn't work,
It didn't work.
obviously, but we tried.
Yeah.
Because we are raised with this idea that it's an option, that my lifestyle is optional, that I'm choosing to
Yes.
be gay, which
Yes.
is not true. It's
Right.
just,
And
it is what it is.
that's the fundamental part of this rebellious, sort of label. Like you are choosing to go against the grain. And what all of this does, for me at least, and I don't live in resentment. I don't live in, anger or despair. And actually it took me a minute to come up with this conversation to talk about, but it is deep down in there. There
Yes.
are some feelings that still need to be resolved. And I'm sure there's many people out there that can agree that there is a resentment that does build up. You start to think, what if my life, especially as you're an adult looking back, how different things could have
Mm-hmm.
been for me if maybe my parents had been more supportive, or maybe my parents had understood what it was to be queer, or that we were exactly normal the way we are. And not only the resentment from them trying to understand us, but the resentment for me and the stress and anxiety that I have now as an adult,
Yes.
that I have become addicted to,
Yes.
right? When this is the other issue, when you're constantly under stress, when you're constantly anxious as a young person, and you're going up and down with your emotions and your hormones, your body becomes addicted to that stress.
Yes.
It becomes addicted to the
Yes.
anxiety because it is a high. You feel this rush of emotion. You feel this almost like a roller coaster.
Mm-hmm.
And so you learn to live with that and almost need it to kind of propel
Later
you
in life
forward.
as
It's almost a
well.
source of energy, right? And so for me as an adult, that's my main issue now. As I look back, like, where does some of this anxiety come from, especially socially? Where does this sort of chasing stress, sometimes, especially in my career, I like to
Mm-hmm.
be really busy and I like to have a lot going on. Where does that come from? And it's like this burst of hormone release that I get when I'm stressed and anxious that all roots back to when I was a kid and just trying to navigate my day-to-day life.
Absolutely. I agree with that. At the same time, however, I think resentment is important because we always go back and think, oh, what if it was different? But I do think we queer people have a very interesting experience, different than our straight counterparts, because we have a unique life. We have to hide that from
Hmm.
our family members, we have to hide that from ourselves sometimes, and we have to deal with that at young age. So I think that makes us more strong
Yes.
and also makes us want more of life. I think
Hmm.
one of the reasons why I am the way I am is because I'm queer.
Yeah.
I always wanted to get out of my city. I was very ambitious. I always wanted to move out and
Hmm.
not live in my hometown as an adult, which most of my friends back then, they still live in my hometown. They're still living in the same place.
Yep.
They're still dating the same people they were dating in high school,
Yep.
which I think a lot of the reasons why I decided to move on and start a new life is because I'm queer, is because I'm gay, because I was not going to be happy there.
Absolutely. And I think that's what we get to choose as queer people. We get to choose our own reality. Maybe not when we're kids, maybe not when it's difficult, but when we become adults. And I think that phrase, "it gets better," is really helpful. But for me, what I used to always tell myself, and I still tell myself to this day, is you can get through one day. You can
Yes.
get through 1 week. You can get
Yes.
through 1 month. You can get through 1 year. You can get through 4 years. Whatever you have to tell yourself to get through those trials and tribulations, to do it, do it. I would literally say this to myself last week about something that's stressing me out, or when I was in medical school. You can do anything for 4 years. You can get through this for four
Yes.
years. My last year, you can do anything for one more year. You can do anything while you're a kid and you're in that situation. You just have to be strong. And of course, that does not cover for everyone. If you are in a dangerous situation, get yourself out of that as quick as possible. But if you can handle it and you can grow from it, it's going to pay off big, as we get older. But the main thing we wanted to talk about at the end of this video is getting some feedback from you. So what was your childhood like? Did you feel like a rebel?
Yes.
Did you avoid that rebellious sort of phase in your life? Did you embrace it?
Did you lie to your parents? Did you lie to yourself? What's your story? Please, we love to hear it. I love when you comment and share your story because we all have different stories to share.
Yeah.
And we love the participation.
Yeah, that's what this place is meant to do, build a community here on YouTube. So please continue leaving those comments below. They mean the world to us. But if you haven't yet, please like, subscribe, share,
Share, drop
drop
a
a pin.
pin. You know what to do.
And we look forward to seeing you next week, or have you listen to us next week on another episode of Relations. Until then,
Thank you.
thank
Bye.
you.